There is a truth in Romans chapter 5, verses 3 to 5, that only the one who has experienced the depths of existence can fully comprehend. The Apostle Paul speaks of a rejoicing in suffering, but this is no shallow joy, no frivolous happiness born of earthly pleasures. To the unreflected person, such a statement appears absurd, a contradiction. How can one rejoice in suffering, when suffering is the very condition from which we flee? But herein lies the paradox that confronts every human soul. To suffer is to be exposed to the reality of existence, stripped of illusions. It is to stand before the infinite and to feel the weight of one's own finitude. In suffering, we are torn from the comforts of the world, from the securities we have constructed for ourselves, and we are faced with the question, who am I? What is the meaning of this suffering? Yet this question cannot be answered by the one who seeks only to escape suffering, for suffering is itself the teacher. Paul writes that suffering produces endurance. But what is endurance? It is not mere persistence, not the stubborn refusal to bend beneath the weight of affliction. No, endurance is the fruit of a deep inward understanding that suffering has meaning. It is the soul's recognition that suffering is not an obstacle to be overcome, but a necessary stage in the development of the self. To endure is to walk the path of suffering not with resentment, but with faith that this path leads to transformation. Endurance, Paul tells us, produces character. This is no shallow notion of character, no mere collection of virtues to be displayed before others. It is the inward formation of the self, the creation of a soul that has been tested by the fire of suffering and found true. For it is only in suffering that we come to know ourselves, and it is only through enduring suffering that we are refined. Character is not built in ease. It is formed in the crucible of adversity when all else has been stripped away. But character is not the final goal. Paul says that character produces hope. And what is hope but the recognition that our suffering is not in vain, that there is a purpose beyond the present moment of affliction? Hope is not a mere wish, not a fleeting desire for better days, but a deep assurance that God is at work in the midst of suffering, shaping us for eternity. Hope is born in the heart that has endured, that has been shaped by suffering, and that now sees beyond the suffering to the loving hand of God who holds all things. This hope, Paul assures us, will not put us to shame, for it is grounded not in the fleeting circumstances of life, but in the eternal love of God poured into our hearts by the Holy Spirit. It is this love that sustains us, that gives meaning to our suffering, and that draws us even closer to God. Thus, we can rejoice, not in the suffering itself, but in the knowledge that through suffering we are being shaped for eternity.